With a tentative truce holding in Gaza despite sporadic violence, 99ers have been out to highlight the roots of violence in the tiny Palestinian enclave, the long, illegal Israeli siege. Chicago, LA, and Washington, D.C. occupiers demonstrated to demand the U.S. government end its support of Israel's human rights abuses against Palestinians and move to stop the illegal blockade of the impoverished coastal strip. In D.C., protests to oppose the Keystone Pipeline uncovered yet more wrongs that 99ers are fighting to put right. A National Day of Mourning in Plymouth Rock saw Native Americans and supporters, including occupiers from Boston, New York City, and other locations, meet at the famous Pilgrim landing place to present the truth about the Thanksgiving holiday from the perspective of the indigenous peoples of America who were conquered and very nearly wiped out by European settlers to the New World. In Los Angeles, California, Portland, Oregon, Kenosha, and Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Thanksgiving and Black Friday Walmart protests were organized by occupiers, unions, and workers to stand in solidarity with Walmart employees. Black Friday is the biggest shopping day of the pre-holiday season, when rampant consumerism reigns supreme in the U.S. Walmart employees walked out of work, despite threats and intimidation, to demand better pay, fair schedules, and affordable health care. OWS Week has been on the 99ers trail and more. Protesters gathered again at Federal Plaza in Chicago on November 19th for a Support Gaza rally and march. Many of the signs they carried were inscribed with the names and ages of those killed by Israel's recent bombing forays on Gaza. Speakers addressed the crowd, urging them to get involved by whatever method they can in communicating to Americans and the world the truth about what has really happened to Palestinians. Protesters also gathered in Los Angeles and Portland on November 20th to march against Israeli war on Gaza, pointing out the fragility of any ceasefire as long as the occupation and blockade continue. Flags flew high as citizens sent their message of peace and support to Gaza.
What is your name? How do you spell your name?
My name is Hanan Wuhush. It's spelled Hananwuhush.
All right. And now you're from what school again?
I'm from the University of Illinois at Chicago.
Now, do you do some organizing on Palestinian rights over there, or what?
I do. I am the president of the Students for Justice in Palestine at UIC.
Okay. Now, the name is pretty much self-evident of your group. Why don't you go into a little bit of detail about the things you work for?
So we work on, spreading awareness about the crimes that are happening in Palestine and in Gaza, all over the West Bank. We try to educate the UIC population community. We also try to educate and make change through the boycott and divestment sanctions movement, which is targeting the companies that profit from the human rights abuses that are happening in Palestine. And
before we go to that, if we could, because I want to explore that in a little bit of depth.
Okay.
Why don't you discuss, now you say there are human rights violations and problems and such. Why don't you go into what those are? Kind of detail them for people who don't know.
Well, for example, like some of the human rights abuses that are occurring are, the illegal apartheid wall, the constant segregation in the checkpoints, the biometric scanning that is occurring that enhances segregation. In Gaza right now, currently, Gaza is being bombed and attacked, and they're not given human rights. They're not given the right to in Gaza especially. Their humanitarian aid is not allowed in. Israel's controlling basically every aspect of Palestinian life when it comes to medical supplies, when it comes to education, when it comes to everything. So
Let's talk about the wall for a minute. Why don't you tell me about the wall? Tell me what it's like, give a little bit of a description. What does it surround? Is it the same in all areas? How does that work?
The apartheid wall is around the West Bank, and there is a wall around Gaza as well. It's not the same at some points. It's taller than the other. It separates some Palestinian village from other Palestinian villages. It cuts communities in half. It separates the illegal Israeli settlements from the Palestinian villages. It is used as a apartheid and segregation tool by Israel to contain and control, occupy the Palestinian people.
Okay, tell me a little bit about the biometrics. Describe what that is.
The biometric scanning, which HP is actually the company that is in charge of the biometric scanning. It scans, is in charge of the scanners that are present in checkpoints, and what it does is it makes Palestinians scan their fingerprints and say who they are, so they can racially profile and continue to segregate people.
We're here because of the tragedy that's unfolding in Gaza, and we feel that our own government is complicit in that, and in particular because we have given Israel so much money for arms, and so one of the things that we're calling for is an end to the $3 billion a year that the U.S. gives to Israel, and also we would like an investigation under the arms control and export law. Countries that get money from the U.S. Are not allowed to use that for human rights violations, and we believe that Israel has done that, and we would like the State Department to do an investigation.
Okay, and what's your organization? And if you want, you can say your name.
My name is Jean Athey. I'm with Peace Action Montgomery.
Okay, thank you.
Occupiers in Washington, D.C. held a peaceful protest to oppose the Keystone Pipeline, the massive conduit which will span the U.S. carrying tar sands oil from Canada. Their first stop was to the offices of one of the most powerful lobbyists for the pipeline. Then they headed to the Canadian Embassy to set a balloon float bearing a message, free. No tar sands, no pipeline. Over in East Los Angeles, occupiers continued their work with the Lucero family, facing imminent eviction due to illegal foreclosure by Deutsche Bank. Well-known graffiti artists had painted a mural which was destroyed by vandals. The Luceros and their allies were not deterred. The mural will be repaired, and a Feed the People event was held on November 20th, followed by a Thanksgiving dinner on the 22nd, hosted by the family for all of those who have helped them. Heading to Plymouth, Massachusetts on Thanksgiving, occupiers from Boston, New York City, and other locations joined Native Americans for a National Day of Mourning march at the famous Pilgrim landing place.
The struggle will continue. Now, we have a lot more to talk about than the Pilgrims or what happened in the 1600s. We will also be speaking out about conditions in Indian country today. We are here to unite people and to speak the truth. On our program will be only Native speakers. This is the one day when we speak for ourselves without non-Native people, the so-called experts, intervening to interpret and speak for us. We are more than capable of speaking for ourselves. Today, for a few hours, we are gathered here in liberated territory. Our very presence frees this land from the lies of the history books, the profiteers, and the myth makers. We will remember and honor all of our ancestors in struggle who went before us. We will speak truth to power. We will remember in particular all of our sisters and brothers who are caged in the iron houses. Now, in 1970, few people would have given any thought to the fact that the indigenous peoples of this hemisphere do not look upon the arrival of the European invasion as a reason to give thanks. Today, many thousands stand with us in spirit as we commemorate our 43rd National Day of Mourning. Now, beautiful Native youth, all youth, remember what your ancestors went through to bring you here. We are like the dirt, and we are like the sand, and we are like the tides. We shall endure. In the spirit of Crazy Horse, in the spirit of Metacom, in the spirit of Geronimo, we are not vanishing. We are not conquered, and we are as strong as ever. Oh.
Members of the Wampanoag Nation, whose ancestors helped the European settlers survive after they reached this new, albeit fully populated continent, told the true story of genocide and slavery of indigenous peoples. Participants in the annual Day of Mourning and Remembrance spoke out against war and environmental degradation. Calls for the release of political prisoners such as Leonard Peltier also rang out in the streets of the historic colonial town. Black Friday is the day following Thanksgiving Day in the United States, traditionally the beginning of the Christmas shopping season. Most major retailers open extremely early. In fact, some now open on Thanksgiving night. Promotional sales are offered to kick off the holiday shopping season. It has routinely been the busiest shopping day of the year for many years. The day's name originated in Philadelphia and referred to the heavy and disruptive pedestrian and vehicle traffic characteristic of the day. A later explanation was that Black Friday indicates the point at which retailers begin to turn a profit or are in the black. Boycotts of Black Friday and the rampant consumerism it encourages have been developing over the past few years. Shoppers are encouraged to abstain from going out on Friday and to refrain from buying at big box stores, to make their purchases at locally owned businesses instead. The boycotts have a sound foundation, but gathering popular support has been an uphill battle in a country dedicated, for the most part, to over-the-top consumption. Black Friday this year saw 1,000 protests at retail giant Walmart stores across 46 states, with hundreds of workers walking off the job in an unprecedented, decentralized, open-source strike. Local Occupy groups supported actions in dozens of cities, and OWS Week was there to catch the action in Kenosha and Milwaukee, Wisconsin, along with Los Angeles, California, and Portland, Oregon. Walmart's propaganda department attempted to downplay the events, but this latest wave of strikes and solidarity actions forced even the corporate media to pay attention and put the 1% on notice. Portland protesters began their action at 8 p.m. on Thanksgiving night, featuring a lighted walkout on Walmart display, and continued with another action on Friday morning. The message to Walmart was clear: stop overdevelopment, which pushes small businesses out, offer health care to workers, stop discriminatory wage practices against women, and mistreatment of employees. Los Angeles saw major action at the Paramount Walmart, where various groups massed to support striking workers, some of whom spoke out about Walmart's practice of providing food stamp applications to new hires. There were several arrests of workers and clergy. Kenosha and Milwaukee, Wisconsin activists joined in the National Day of Action, stopping off at several Walmart locations to stand in solidarity with Walmart employees as they fight for better pay, better schedules, and affordable health care. The message was highlighted over and over again. Low prices at Walmart result in onerous burdens on its workers' backs and thousands of mom-and-pop stores closing throughout the country. Occupy joined with Our Walmart, the organization United for Respect at Walmart, some time ago and plans to continue. When we work together, another world is possible. We do not have to accept poverty, low wages, or unfair working conditions with no benefits, while 6 members of the Walton family are worth more than the bottom 42% of American families combined. The struggle is not over. Occupy Wall Street has issued a call to Americans to support our Walmart and all low-wage workers and unemployed people in the front lines against income inequality. They say roll back, we say fight back. Walmart Stores Incorporated is a worldwide retail giant in every sense of the word. Branded as Walmart, it is an American multinational retailer corporation that runs chains of large discount department stores and warehouse stores. The company is the world's 3rd largest public corporation. It is also the biggest private employer in the world, with over 2 million employees, and is the largest retailer in the world. Walmart remains a family-owned business, as the company is controlled by the Walton family, who own a 48% stake in it. The Walton family is now worth over $100 billion. Walmart has 8,500 stores in 15 countries, under 55 different names. The company operates under the Walmart name in the United States, including the 50 states and Puerto Rico. It operates in Mexico as Walmex, in the United Kingdom as Asda, in Japan as Seiyu, and in India as Best Price. It has wholly owned operations in Argentina, Brazil, and Canada. Over the last few months, an unprecedented wave of labor unrest and scandals to do with its workers' pay and work conditions have begun to shake the retail giant and its far-reaching supply chain. It all began in June when a group of immigrant guest workers at a Walmart seafood supplier in Louisiana walked off their jobs. In September, workers at company warehouses in California and Illinois went on strike. The workers in Illinois eventually won back pay. California workers' industrial actions came to nothing, so they started striking again last Wednesday. Shortly after those warehouse strikes began, retail workers backed by our Walmart started walking out of stores in 12 states. The number of disgruntled employees taking part in walkouts has been limited, but pressure has also been steadily mounting on the management. The workers finally decided to drive their grievances home on Black Friday. Black Friday is the biggest shopping day of the pre-holiday season, when rampant consumerism possesses the U.S. public. Black Friday Walmart protests were joined by occupiers, unions, and workers in solidarity with Walmart employees. The walkout was organized by the organization United for Respect at Walmart, Our Walmart, a group of Walmart employees formed last year that works closely with the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, or UFCW. Our Walmart, which organized walkouts in October, is pushing for better working conditions, benefits, and an end to alleged retaliation by management. The company has never before dealt with coordinated labor protests on this scale. Walmart has predictably been painting the striking employees as an unrepresentative minority in its workforce. The retailer has maintained an almost entirely union-free workforce for most of its existence, even once resorting to shutting down a store in Quebec shortly after a successful union drive there. A worrying trend for Walmart owners and shareholders has begun to cause sleepless nights for all of the U.S. retail giants. The workers are no longer willing to put up with what they call slave wages and conditions. Self-help groups have formed to primarily try to highlight the workers' grievances. But should the management ignore their pleas, such groups have shown that effective industrial actions can be organized to pressure the 1%ers into coughing up fairer pay and conditions to their long-suffering workers.
My name is Jerry Sinowitz.
Please spell that.
Synowicz.
Where did you work? Which Walmart?
I work at Walmart in Milwaukee South 27, 2828.
Are you a current employee there?
Yes, I am.
How long you been there?
8 years.
Okay. Yourself?
My name is Mary Pat Tift, T-I-F-F-T. I am a current, almost 25-year associate at the Kenosha Walmart.
Okay.
My name is Lisa Gibson. I am actually a former associate from the Kenosha store.
Why are you doing this? What's the reason?
I'm doing this because I'm trying to make it a better workplace for myself and my fellow associates across the country.
What are your complaints or grievances with Walmart?
The three major concerns, well, I'm sure there's more, but to start with is the poverty level wages, the unaffordable health care, and the not dependable scheduling.
Okay, when you're talking about poverty level wages, can you kind of flesh that out a little bit and kind of let us know more about like the actual wage scale or setup like that?
They start Walmart associates out at just over minimum wage. The raise schedule that they have on that is yearly, and it is anywhere from 40 cents a year to 60 cents a year, and 60 cents is just unheard of. So, I mean, you're starting out at just above minimum wage, and the most you're going to get is a 40 cents or 50 cent per year raise.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to project a little more when you talk, if you would. Now, people say minimum wage, and they get a view of the people who do minimum wage are, and not to make fun of everybody in this place, but the kids. But when I go to Walmart, I see some kids, but I see adults. Okay? Now, I'm not going to say adults deserve money just because they're adults. I'm one myself, and I actually work on the same wage level you guys do pretty much. I work for tips, which makes it a bit better. Talk about some of the employees you've known and what they have to deal with in their lives on that amount of money.
I know of a particular associate that I work with every day, and she's a full-time employee, and I do know that she is a single mom and that she is dependent on our local food pantries.
So she ends up at the Shalom Center, and maybe that one in West Scotia that has the thing.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure as to which one, but I do know that she is dependent on that, and I'm sure that there's many other associates. I've heard of associates whose cars have broken down, and they're trying to decide, should they get their car fixed so they can get to work, or should they pay their rent so that they have a place to live? I mean, nobody should have to be having to make those kinds of decisions because nobody has a bank account. There's no savings accounts.
Okay. Do you want to throw anything in on this?
Actually, I know of several associates that are single parents, and they're on Badger Care. They're getting food stamps. They're living in housing because they can't afford the rent. They can't afford their food.
Not a lot of this will be seen by people in Wisconsin. Could you kind of just give a little idea to them what Badger Care is and what you mean by living in housing, if you can flesh those out a little?
By housing, they get subsidized housing that's based on your income. Badger Care is health care because if you are lucky enough to be a full-time associate with Walmart, you can't afford the insurance they offer, and they don't pay it for you.
What do you mean you called labor practice?
When I called in for tomorrow saying that I will not be at work, I stated that I was on an unfair labor practice. I'm walking out on strike on an unfair labor practice to stand in solidarity with associates across the country. We're being retaliated against for speaking out and trying to be silenced.
Okay, so you should have labor board protections on this?
Yes.
Does your group have access to a lawyer?
Yes.
Okay, so this could get really interesting.
Yes.